Congressman Brian Babin. He is a retired U.S. Air Force captain. Also with us, Congressman Steve Chabot. He's the ranking member on the Subcommittee on Asia, the Pacific, Central Asia, and Non-Proliferation. Gentlemen, great to have you both with us.
Great to be with you, John.
First to you, Congressman Babin. Yesterday, Jen Psaki was asked about the prospect of President Biden resigning and those calling on him to do so, and here's what she had to say.
This is a day where U.S. service members, 12 of them, lost their lives at the hands of terrorists. It's not a day for politics, and we would expect that any American, whether they're elected or not, would stand with us in our commitment to going after and fighting and killing those terrorists wherever they live.
You know, Congressman Babin, I talked to a few folks yesterday and said this isn't about politics, this is about accountability.
That's exactly right. This is certainly not about politics whatsoever. Because of bad decisions, unwise decisions, lack of attention or whatever, incompetency, this president has caused the deaths of 12 brave U.S. Marines and one Navy corpsman, and a bunch of others wounded, and some of our Afghan allies killed as well. It's been a string of bad decisions on the part of this president. Arbitrary evacuation dates, August 31st, that's really hurting us. Giving up Bagram Air Base to the Taliban, I still don't understand that. Evacuating U.S. troops before American citizens have been evacuated. Depending on the Taliban for security, giving them lists of American citizens' names, green card holders, and even our Afghan allies, which puts them on a hit list. And then I think last but not least, leaving $85 million worth of weapons and equipment for the Taliban to take over. It's incredible. This is not about politics. This is about leadership, and it has caused the damage that we have already seen, and we have now lost face. Our allies don't trust us anymore. They think we're treacherous, and our enemies don't fear us. That's a bad situation to be, and I'm sure my friend Steve Chabot would agree.
Congressman Chabot, you know, I've seen you standing next to some of these Afghan war veterans at some of these news conferences that Kevin McCarthy has held this week, and you know, the impassioned, righteous indignation, I think, really is the best way to describe it, and it's understandable why these guys feel this way, especially those who have been injured. And I want to talk too about Congressman Dan Crenshaw, a retired Navy SEAL. Here's what he said, tweeting this yesterday, if true, about the list apparently handed out to the Taliban, list of American names and our Afghan allies. If this is true, this qualifies as borderline treason. We need to find out who is responsible for giving the Taliban a hit list, and they need to go to prison. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do. I agree with Dan. I agree with Brian, all the things that they said. This botched evacuation pullout is, in my view, it's the worst foreign affairs blunder that we've seen, I think, really in U.S. history. It's just almost incomprehensible, the chaos, the disorganization, the lack of planning that this administration, the Biden administration, has shown. And we're now seeing it paid for in American lives, as well as the lives of our allies in Afghanistan. You know, we hadn't had one American death of military personnel in a year and a half. Now we've had 13 in one day, and dozens of our allies killed as well. It didn't have to happen this way. You know, a lot of people, both Republicans and Democrats, thought that we should ultimately get out of Afghanistan, but nobody thought we should do it this way. It's been a blunder of really epic proportions, and it didn't have to happen and shouldn't have happened this way.
Yeah, when you go back and you look at President Trump's comments about getting out of Afghanistan back in 2017, it almost sounds exactly like he was describing this kind of nightmare scenario, getting out too quickly, doing things in a nonlinear fashion, like Congressman Babin said, closing down Bagram Air Force Base, getting the troops out there before the American civilians are. A lot of questions that boggle the mind. But, gentlemen, we'll leave that aside because we had another big story to talk about with you. The Supreme Court ending the CDC's pandemic-related eviction moratorium yesterday. You know, again, I think this was the expected outcome here. What I think a lot of people didn't expect was the willingness, Congressman Babin, for Joe Biden to kind of thumb his nose at the law here and the Supreme Court when he said, look, I don't know if this is legal or not, but we're going to pursue it anyway.
Well, certainly his thumbing his nose at the law is no new thing for this president. And, you know, I hope that he obeys the court order. We've seen, you know, his ignoring of court orders on the border situation as well. And so I'm glad to see that the courts are pushing back on this, quite frankly, a lawless administration. They seem to only enforce the laws they agree with, and they ignore the laws that they don't want. And we're seeing that in spades all across every single aspect of our domestic life here in the United States, and especially down there on that border. It is incredible what we're seeing down there.
Well, we also saw the Supreme Court uphold the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy after the Biden administration tried to give immigration officers as well permission to grant asylum to eligible migrants. This is something else that could be a potentially big deal here. The Remain in Mexico issue has been settled, but the Biden administration, Congressman Chabot, they still want to give these officers the authority to grant amnesty to illegal migrants here. Normally that's done by a judge or some sort of magistrate. This sounds potentially dangerous. I mean, are these folks, I'm not impugning the motives of any Border Patrol officer right now, but shouldn't this type of decision be reserved for judges?
Absolutely. And as Brian said, this administration is basically ignoring the law, going around the law, and there ought to be ramifications for that. And the people that are coming into the country, the bottom line is a significant percentage of them have COVID. And then they're being put on buses and planes at taxpayer expense and shipped all over the country. And we know that that's basically allowing that COVID to spread throughout the country. They're also bringing in fentanyl from China, and that is killing tens of thousands of Americans every year. So this administration has been acting outside the law. It's dangerous. It's hurting Americans, killing Americans. And unfortunately, a lot of the rest of the press, a lot of the mainstream press, just doesn't cover this anymore, even though it ought to be a national story because it's a national scandal. They
are bored with it. There's a lack of curiosity for some reason, considering the enormous implications and consequences of a wide open border. And also, these are temporary victories, I think, for conservatives here and Republicans, because we know these losses in the Supreme Court just gives Democrats more opportunity to talk about their need and desire to pack the court with their own judges. Gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. We're out of time, but thank you so much, Congressman Steve Chabot, also Congressman Brian Babin with us as well. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
All right, let's get in.